Tucked away in the remote mountains of Uttarakhand, hidden behind dense pine forests and broken roads, lies a settlement so isolated that people in neighboring towns avoid mentioning its name. This is Kuldhara Gaon. By dusk, the modern village goes entirely dead. There are no barking dogs, no insects buzzing in the grass. Even the birds seem to vanish from the tree line as the sun dips below the mountains. This silence is driven by a very specific fear. Whenever a full moon rises, a strict lockdown protocol takes over the remaining families. Doors are bolted tight before the moon breaches the horizon, and absolutely no one steps outside. Kuldhara Gaon operates as a community under siege. The remaining residents are actively hiding from a recurring, undeniable threat, one that arrives like clockwork with the lunar cycle. The geography of this fear centers on a structure built almost 200 years ago. Deep inside the surrounding forest sits an ancient Shiva temple, originally constructed by wandering priests and long considered a sacred, peaceful anchor for the village. That sacred status held until the late 1970s. According to local records, a rogue priest took up residence at the temple and began attempting to communicate with spirits through forbidden rituals. Night after night, villagers reported hearing intense chanting echoing out from the dark woods. Almost immediately, the community began to suffer. Strange, unrecognizable symbols appeared carved into the bark of nearby trees and the temple walls. Within months, a wave of severe nightmares, sleepwalking incidents, and unexplained illnesses swept through the village population. The physical structure of the temple itself reflected this decline. Massive tree roots aggressively breached the stone foundations, wrapping around cracked brickwork like giant snakes, while thick moss choked out the ancient carvings. Whatever happened during those late-night rituals altered the psychological safety of the forest. The once peaceful destination became the epicenter of a localized curse. For decades, the temple was simply a place to avoid. But in 2004, the local superstition materialized into a physical missing person case. A shepherd named Mohan Singh was returning from a nearby market with 2 goats. Witnesses placed him walking toward the forest road at roughly 9 p.m. The sky was entirely clear, illuminated by a bright full moon. He never made it home. Search teams spent 3 days combing through the surrounding rivers, deep valleys, and thick pine forests. They found absolutely nothing. There was no body, no torn clothing, no blood, and not a single footprint leading away from the road. Investigators initially assumed a wild animal was responsible for Mohan's death, but this timeline charts the escalating disappearances. 2 months later, another missing person was logged, followed by several more. Overlaying a lunar phase chart reveals a chilling statistical correlation. Every single disappearance aligns perfectly with a full moon night. The data laid out a rigid spatial and temporal pattern. Victims vanished only when they were near the old Shiva temple, and exclusively under the maximum light of the moon. The compounding trauma finally broke the community. Fear dictated the harvest schedules, children were banned from the forest, and by 2009, nearly half the village population had permanently packed up and left, leaving roofs to collapse and homes to fill with dust. Those who stayed reported terrifying eyewitness encounters. A farmer named Devendra spotted his missing brother near the temple entrance during winter. The figure stood completely motionless, and when Devendra yelled his name, it slowly turned a pale, expressionless face toward him before fading silently into the dark trees. The anomaly began stretching beyond the immediate forest. Truck drivers navigating the winding mountain roads around Kuldhara reported their radios instantly dying as they crossed the perimeter. One driver suffered total engine failure moments after spotting a phantom woman in white standing on the shoulder of the dirt path. Whatever was anchored to the ruins had established a supernatural perimeter. The surviving residents were trapped in a psychological prison, surrounded by an environment that turned hostile once a month. In 2011, independent journalist Ritesh Verma arrived in Kuldhara Gaon. Specializing in rural mysteries, he initially intended to debunk the disappearances as collective hysteria and exaggerated folklore. Defying warnings from the elders, his methodology was direct. On the night of the full moon, he hiked to the temple perimeter, positioned a video camera facing the entrance, and armed himself with a flashlight and a voice recorder. This audio data is from his recorder, timestamped at 11:47 p.m. The track initially picked up distant bell-like noises, which transitioned into faint crying. Over heavy breathing, Ritesh can be heard whispering that someone was near the trees, followed by a final panicked statement, "I can see movement." The recorder cut off. The next morning, villagers found his camera lying half buried in mud near the temple stairs. Ritesh was gone. Police managed to pull a damaged final frame from the device, showing a blurry human shape standing directly behind where the journalist had been. Ritesh's disappearance transformed the village's oral history into a documented, fatal reality. 5 years later, a dedicated paranormal research team out of Delhi attempted to map the area. They arrived carrying industrial detection gear, deploying infrared cameras and motion sensors across the village perimeter. Almost immediately, the hardware began failing. Between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. on their second night, motion sensors positioned near the temple staircase activated repeatedly, alerting despite the area appearing completely empty to the naked eye. One infrared camera recorded physical movement. The footage shows dark, indistinct shadow forms detaching from the tree line, moving against the direction of moonlight. The investigation collapsed shortly after. One team member suddenly stopped speaking, staring blankly into the dark woods for 10 straight minutes. When he finally broke his silence, he quietly warned the group that unseen voices were calling people inside the temple. They packed up and fled before sunrise. Officials have suggested hypotheses ranging from underground toxic gas leaks to organized criminal activity. However, neither theory accounts for the localized hardware failures, the dropping temperatures, or the strict lunar timing of the disappearances. The 2016 investigation ended like the searches before it, with data but without a conclusion. Modern instruments documented the shadow forms and the hardware failures, yet the underlying cause remains unreached by any rational explanation. Today, fewer than 20 families remain in Kuldhara Gaon. They exist in a cycle of lunar dread, barricading their doors every month to survive a phenomenon they cannot fight or comprehend. At night, the ruined village feels incredibly heavy. The cold mountain wind is the only thing moving, swallowing the empty streets in silence. And yet, physical evidence continues to manifest. Every winter, under the light of the brightest full moon, fresh footprints appear in the dirt and snow near the abandoned Shiva temple. The tracks are clear. They always start from deep inside the forest, stepping out toward the edge of the tree line, but they never turn around. There are no tracks leading back. The ancient temple still waits in the dark. And Kuldhara Gaon remains an active hunting ground, quietly feeding an insatiable, traceless appetite.